Welcome back. Let's go over to Seattle, where these workers won their fight for a $15 minimum wage. That's the highest in the country. But now a group of franchise business owners are fighting back with a lawsuit to stop it. We're going to take it to our guest. Rich, you say we all better hope that they win. How come?
You know, Seattle's been in a boom, and now at the very apex of their boom, you know, part of which includes this great tourism industry and restaurants and so forth, this $15 minimum wage is going to put serious hurt on the restaurants and the service workers. It sounds good. Look, Seattle's an expensive place to live. $15 an hour is not much. It's just that it won't work. Tips are going to go down, jobs are going to disappear. It's going to have a negative impact.
Yeah, what do you think, Rick Unger? We're already hearing from local businesses they may have to lay off people or not hire. What do you think?
I got bad news from my buddy Rich Carlgard. They're going to lose this lawsuit almost for a certainty. The city government has every right to pass this kind of a law. But I got to call all my friends here on the panel out a little bit. I constantly sit here and listen to you complain about federal government having too much power. Where it really ought to reside is the city government and the local governments. Now you have a local government taking action for only their city, and you're complaining about that. Is it about government going to the cities, or is it about you only like city government getting involved if you like what they pass? Let Seattle happen. Let's see how this experiment works out. This is what you always support. Let it happen.
Yeah, to John Tamny, to Rick Unger's point, I mean, 11 business leaders were on the panel that voted for the minimum wage hike. What do you make of that?
I'm all for federalism, but the Constitution protects private property. Business is a private property. My labor is also a private property. I should be able to transact for however much I want per hour with a business, and a business should be able to choose how much it pays me. So I love this lawsuit. Business should protect their rights, and we as individuals should protect our rights to get jobs.
Just hang on, Carrie. Excuse me, Carrie. I'm going to come to you in a second. John Tamny, so what? You pay them $1 an hour? That's okay?
Right.
No one's putting a gun to your head to go work for $1 an hour. And to Rick's point, or Rich's point, Seattle is booming. Odds are most businesses would have to pay more than $15 an hour.
All right, Carrie, let's have Carrie weigh in. Go ahead, Carrie.
Bad policy is bad policy if it's at the local or the federal, whatever level. And EMAC, I am a proud alumna of minimum wage. I made tacos at Taco Bell. I made sandwiches at Subway.
For how much?
I was lucky. I was lucky to have that job.
How much an hour did you get, though?
I think it was, I forget what, I was living in Utah and Missouri, so whatever the minimum wage
So you're
were.
the $1 an hour guy. Okay, there
What
you
I'm
go.
saying is, though, but Seattle, I was lucky to have those jobs, but Seattle is basically going to say, guess what, young people, guess what, most likely to be laid off under this policy, Hispanic, African-American young people. It's going to hurt them the most, and this liberal policy of, oh, it feels good, it's actually going to hurt people the most. What we need is the earned income tax credit.
That's interesting. Hey, Steve Forbes, to Carrie's point, it's going to knock out the bottom rung. That's been the debate of the people who need the jobs most. Do you agree with that, or what do you think?
Oh, it's absolutely true. And if you're going to hire somebody at minimum wage, you're not going to go to older workers because you don't have to put up with the inexperience and everything else. So younger people who don't have the skills, especially from minority community, are going to be hurt. And it's going to end up having kiosks in more of these places where you punch in the order and get it at the counter. So it's absolutely counterproductive. And this is what happens in an economy where you have stagnation. You get this kind of silly, destructive, self-destructive legislation.
You mean the tablet checkout. You're seeing that at Panera Bread and Applebee's, you know, the self-checkout at grocery stores. But Sabrina, to Rick Unger's point, why not let the Seattle experiment fly and then see what happens? We have been saying, let local cities decide for themselves. What do you make of that argument?
Well, I think Rick is right. The problem is this is all about politics and not good policy. I was at a conference this week as well, and it was all about women voters, and this is sort of viewed as a way to win women voters, 2/3 of whom are of minimum wage earners are women. The problem is that they're presenting this as a way to alleviate poverty, but poverty is not because people are trapped in low-paying fast food jobs the way Carrie was describing she had. It's because they don't have access to jobs at all. Less than 9% of people living in poverty who are 16 and older actually had full-time work. 67% didn't have work at all. This is the problem. It's not the low wages.
So Rich Carlgard really slammed those who are poor. Is that what you think too?
Oh, well, of course it does, and it could set in motion a bunch of things that could be destructive for Seattle's growth. And let us not forget, in the 1970s, Seattle was so busted, there was a billboard that said, "Will the last person to leave Seattle please turn out the lights?" You know, so cities rise, cities fall on bad or good economic policy.
You know, Rick Unger, I mean, Seattle's minimum wage right now is even bigger than the Washington State's minimum wage. What do you make of that?
Well, and, you know, what's interesting is you're absolutely right. It is a little bit bigger than the averages in Washington State, and yet you've all been sitting here telling us how great
the state's mandated minimum wage. Go ahead.
Well, but Seattle does pay more already. You're right about that. Now, and also keep in mind that this minimum wage is going to go up gradually. It's not like next year you wake up and it's $15. But I got to highlight, I heard Sabrina say I was right. So what I really want to do is sit here and say, good night, folks, and tip your waitress, except according to Steve, there won't be any more waitresses left.
Steve, final point. Okay, go ahead, Carrie, quickly.
No, I was going to say, this is a price control. And we know from the Nixon era that price controls fail. They're bad for the economy.
Steve, final point.
And rent controls don't work either. This is a form of a price control. And by the way, they'll win that suit because it has a crazy discrimination against franchisers.
All right. We'll be watching the lawsuit, bringing you the update on that one and when it comes through.